I was 62 years old when a red lipstick stain quietly ended my marriage. It didn't happen in some explosive fight or dramatic confession. It happened in the soft yellow light of our Manhattan living room, with the city humming outside and my husband's cashmere scarf tossed over the back of a chair I'd picked out. I only meant to grab it, fold it, and turn off the lamps. Instead, my fingers brushed a smear of lipstick in a shade I hadn't worn in 20 years. Deep wine red, bold, young, not mine. For a few seconds I just stood there holding the scarf in midair, watching that tiny stain glow under the lamp like a warning flare. The dishwasher hummed. A horn echoed from somewhere down on West End Avenue. My heart, on the other hand, went silent. It's strange how fast you can inventory your whole life. In the time it took my brain to register that color, I remembered every stupid little compromise I'd made since marrying Ryan. The late dinners I pretended not to notice. The sudden client meetings. The way he'd started turning his iPhone face down on the table and smiling at it like it was telling him secrets. I remembered telling myself I was paranoid, that women my age are supposed to be grateful when a younger man still comes home at night. Then I lifted the scarf closer. The stain was right where someone's mouth would land if they leaned in, laughing, and pulled him down by the collar. I actually laughed. One sharp, ridiculous sound that bounced off the windows. "Of course," I muttered. "Of course it's lipstick. The universe couldn't send me an email. It had to go old school." My reflection in the glass door to the balcony stared back at me. Silver hair pinned up, soft lines at the corners of my eyes, an old college sweatshirt hanging loose over silk pajama pants. Behind me, the Manhattan skyline glowed. I looked less like the glamorous wife of a successful financial advisor and more like a woman who'd stayed too late at a party that ended hours ago. For one insane moment, I tried to explain it away. Maybe it was from the gala, I thought. Maybe some tipsy donor hugged him too tightly at the Plaza Hotel and didn't realize her lipstick smeared. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe my stomach tightened. Women my age don't survive on maybes. We survive on what we've already seen. I carried the scarf into the kitchen, turned on the overhead light, and laid it flat on the counter like evidence. The stain was bigger than I first thought, half blended into the gray fibers, as if someone had dragged their mouth along it and then tried badly to rub it away. "Careful, Grace," I told myself. "You don't get to unsee this." My hand shook when I picked up my iPhone and snapped a photo. I didn't even know why I did it. Habit, maybe. Proof for later. Proof for myself, in case I woke up tomorrow and decided to gaslight my own memory. As I stood there with the phone in my hand and the scarf on the counter, something inside me shifted with a quiet, unmistakable click. This is it, I thought. This is the moment I finally stopped pretending not to know. From the bedroom, I heard the shower shut off. Pipes groaned, glass door slid, the familiar sounds of Ryan moving around in steam and whatever cologne he'd picked up on Fifth Avenue. For years, that sound meant safety to me. Tonight, it sounded like footsteps walking away. I folded the scarf in half and tucked it back over the chair as if nothing had happened. Let him think karma is late, I told myself, turning off the lights one by one. He has no idea it's already in the room. The worst part wasn't the lipstick. The worst part was that I knew exactly how this all began, and it hadn't started with lies. It started with me finally feeling alive again. 5 years earlier, I was 57, and absolutely certain my love life was over. My evenings were a predictable loop. A glass of red wine I never quite finished, my Kindle glowing on the nightstand, and my old MacBook Air balanced on my lap as I tweaked kitchen layouts for clients who wanted modern farmhouse in Manhattan, which is just code for too much white and a fake plant. That night, Linda texted me, "Put on something that doesn't have elastic. I'm dragging you to a design and real estate mixer. There's free food." I replied, "I'm in pajamas and emotionally retired." She sent back a single word: "Move." An hour later, I was in a black dress I hadn't worn since my husband's retirement party, standing in the lobby of a hotel near Central Park, clutching a Starbucks cup like it was emotional support. The place was full of tall people in slim suits talking about market cycles and capital deployment, as if they were ordering salads. "I don't belong here," I whispered to Linda. She grinned. "You belong anywhere the hors d'oeuvres are this fancy." Now stand up straight, your posture is scaring the champagne. She wandered off to attack the cheese table, and I made my way toward a corner, planning to blend into the wallpaper for an acceptable amount of time and then sneak home to my Kindle. That was the plan. Instead, I walked straight into a man's chest. My heel caught on the edge of a rug, my body pitched forward, and my entire Starbucks cup decided to give its life in slow motion down the front of his perfectly pressed white shirt. "Oh my God," I gasped. "I am so sorry. I swear I'm usually only dangerous emotionally." The man looked down at his shirt, then up at me. He should have been furious. That shirt probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Instead, he smiled, a real smile, not the tight networking kind, and said, "Well, now I don't look like everyone else in here. I should thank you." He took the empty cup from my hand before I dropped it. Up close, I could see faint laugh lines at the corners of his eyes, the good kind you earn from actually living, not from squinting at spreadsheets. "I'm Ryan," he said, "and you're either a designer or an assassin. Which is it?" "Grace," I replied, trying to salvage what was left of my dignity. "And I only kill wardrobes, not people." He laughed. "Are you in interiors?" I blinked. "How did you know?" "Your bag," he said, nodding toward the oversized leather tote on my shoulder. Only designers carry their entire office around like they might need to renovate the hotel lobby on the spot. I looked down at my bag, stuffed with fabric samples, a tape measure, and a notebook. Fair point. We ended up standing near the tall windows, the city lights pouring in behind him. For the first time in a long time, someone asked about my work and actually listened. He didn't talk over me, didn't cut me off to tell me how his job was more important. He wanted to know why I loved small spaces, why I cared about how people felt in their kitchens, why I thought light mattered so much. "Because light tells the truth," I said before I could stop myself. "It shows you what's really there." He tilted his head, looking at me like I'd just given an answer on a game show that he hadn't expected. "That's not the usual answer." "Well," I shrugged, "I'm not the usual age group at these things." I meant it as a joke, but he didn't flinch. "Good," he said. "The usual age group bores me." Later that night, when the event spilled out onto the sidewalk, he walked me and Linda toward a cab. The February air was sharp, city lights bouncing off patches of dirty snow. He shrugged off his coat and draped it over my shoulders without asking. "You'll freeze," I protested. "I live 5 blocks away," he said, "and I'm younger. I'll survive. Consider it an investment." There it was, I realized later. The first time he used that word around me. At the time, I just held his coat tighter and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Noticed. A cab pulled up. Linda climbed in first, winking at me like a teenager who'd just watched her friend get asked to prom. Ryan opened the door and said quietly, "Can I take you to dinner sometime?" "Somewhere I promise there will be no rug hazards." I laughed. "Only if they serve coffee in spill-proof cups." "Deal," he said. "I'll find a place that has both." As the cab pulled away, I looked back and saw him standing under the streetlight, shirt still stained with my coffee, coatless, smiling like the cold didn't touch him. I remember thinking, maybe I get one more chance at this. Even at 57. I didn't know then that second chances sometimes come with fine print you can't read until it's too late. I should have noticed the cracks sooner, but when you fall in love at 57, you don't look for cracks. You look for light, you look for warmth, you look for any sign that life isn't done surprising you. And for a while, Ryan made me believe that. But little things started happening. Tiny tremors before the earthquake, the kind you only recognize as warnings when it's already too late. It began with his phone. Ryan used to leave his iPhone everywhere, on the kitchen counter, on the sofa, sometimes in the fridge. He claimed he was multitasking, which I believed because men his age often struggle with simple things like not refrigerating electronics. But then one day, his phone developed shyness. It stayed face down like it had suddenly become allergic to light, and it vibrated the way hummingbirds flap their wings, fast, urgent, and clearly hiding something. One night, I was on the sofa adjusting lighting concepts for a client's kitchen on my old MacBook Air when his phone, face down, buzzed 3 times in a row. A banner lit the aluminum edge just enough for me to read the first part of the notification. "Can't stop thinking about." Then the screen went dark. My stomach sank. Not because I'm naive, but because I'm 62. When you've lived long enough, you can spot a lie 3 zip codes away. Still, a part of me hoped it was someone from the gym flirting with him by accident. People mistext, right? Right? I slid a little closer on the couch, pretending to stretch my back. The phone buzzed again, like it sensed my curiosity and was begging me to touch it. I didn't. Not yet. I still had pride and arthritis. But when Ryan walked in a minute later, hair slightly mussed from client drinks, he grabbed the phone so fast he practically levitated. "Spam," he said, before I even asked. "Scammers use romantic lines now." "Interesting strategy," I replied. "Do they offer discounts? Buy one heartbreak, get one free?" He didn't laugh. He just kissed my cheek, distracted, and headed to the shower. That's when the next sign arrived. His shirts. Ryan had always smelled like cedar and bergamot, the fragrance that originally made me think, well, at least if this ends badly, he'll smell divine doing it. But suddenly his shirts had hints of something else. A sweeter perfume. Younger. The kind that came from women who still wore heels on weekdays and knew how to contour their cheekbones. So of course I sniffed his collar. Unfortunately, I forgot I was wearing my reading glasses halfway down my nose, so when I leaned too close, the bridge of my glasses poked the collar and made a small snapping sound. I froze, horrified, like a burglar breaking into her own house. I whispered to myself, "Grace, what are you doing? You're 62, not Nancy Drew." Still, the scent was there. Undeniable. Another time, when Ryan was showering, I attempted something far more advanced, unlocking his iPhone with facial recognition. I leaned over him as he slept on the couch, angling my face carefully. I must have looked like a confused owl checking if her mate was still breathing. After 3 failed attempts, the phone flashed a warning. Face not recognized. Try again in 1 minute. I panicked. Not because I got caught, but because I imagined the cops finding me one day and reporting on the news. Local woman arrested for attempted espionage using crow's feet and low self-esteem. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, the phone unlocked. My face had been saved in his settings. I had never felt more betrayed and flattered at the same time. I nearly dropped the phone from shock, which would have been tragic because at my age, dropping things usually means someone ends up Googling urgent care near me. I didn't scroll far, just enough to see message previews that ended too abruptly, emojis that weren't mine, and calendar events with titles like Client Follow-Up, Private. Ryan didn't do private. He did public, with a reservation and a dessert menu. But the moment that hit me hardest happened on a random Tuesday. I was folding laundry when I found a receipt in his jacket pocket from a late-night restaurant. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert described as shared. Shared. The last time we shared a dessert was 18 months ago, when I accidentally sneezed on a creme brulee and Ryan claimed the universe had chosen him for sweetness that night. I stared at the receipt, my hands trembling. Not dramatically, just enough to feel my age, my vulnerability, my fear. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. But I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not yet. Naming it would make it real, and I wasn't prepared for real. Real meant endings. Real meant loneliness again. Real meant stepping into the kind of silence you can't turn into a joke. So instead, I put the receipt in my drawer, next to the photo of my late husband and the reading glasses I pretend I don't need. And I told myself I would wait for one more sign. I didn't know that sign was already waiting for me, in the form of a woman wearing wine-red lipstick, leaving stains on scarves and fingerprints on my life. I didn't learn the truth from a kiss or a confession. I learned it from paperwork. It happened on a quiet Thursday morning. The kind where Manhattan feels half awake, taxis yawning their horns, sunlight slipping through my blinds like it's too early for drama. I was drinking a lukewarm Starbucks herbal tea and trying to pretend the world was normal when an envelope slid under my apartment door. It was thick, heavy, addressed to Ryan. Normally, I never opened his mail. I grew up in an era where you respected privacy, even when you suspected someone was using that privacy to behave like a fool. But something about this envelope felt intentional, like it had weight beyond paper. I stared at it for a full minute, then whispered, "If this is a coupon book, I'm suing someone," and tore it open. Inside were financial statements, detailed, structured, and absolutely none of which I recognized. Ryan had opened a new investment account. Under a new entity, using assets that used to be mine. I blinked. Hard. I read the statement again, slowly, thinking maybe my bifocals were dirty, maybe I was misreading numbers. But no. Right there, bold as betrayal, were funds I'd inherited when my first husband passed. Money I'd kept separate. Money Ryan had insisted he'd help manage for my security. Money I trusted him with. And now that money was sitting quietly in an account tied to a company with a name so generic it practically screamed, "Please don't look at me. I'm innocent." My heart didn't drop. It settled, heavy, cold. This wasn't just lipstick on a scarf. This was architecture, carefully built lies, reinforced with signatures and bank seals. I grabbed my phone and called Linda. She answered on the third ring, breathless. "If you're calling before noon, either someone died or you finally baked that lemon loaf you keep promising." "Neither," I said, "but someone's about to wish they had." 10 minutes later, she was in my kitchen, hair wild, wearing sweatpants that said "Brooklyn loves bagels," holding 2 croissants she clearly picked up in a panic. We spread the papers across my dining table. She pushed her glasses up her nose like a detective in a crime documentary and said, "Grace, this is not good. This is lawyer good. This is I told you not to marry a younger man good." I elbowed her. "Not helping." She elbowed back. "I'm helping emotionally." We spent 30 minutes squinting at fine print until she finally called her niece, who worked in finance out in San Francisco. They FaceTimed us from what looked like a WeWork with too many plants. The niece listened, scrolled through screenshots, and paused. "Aunt Linda? Yes, sweetheart? Your friend needs a lawyer yesterday." Then she frowned. Actually, she needed one last month. I exhaled so sharply my bangs lifted. Linda patted my hand. "Look on the bright side. You always wanted to downsize your emotional baggage. Consider this a clearance sale." I snorted despite myself. If only betrayal came with store credit. But the worst was still inside the envelope. A small jeweler's receipt slipped out. Tiffany & Co. For a necklace worth more than my monthly rent back in the 90s. The note on the bottom read, "For C. Thank you for making me feel alive." My throat tightened. Alive? Who made me feel alive these last 5 years? Who poured life back into a woman who thought she was finished? Certainly not the man buying jewelry for someone else while emptying my accounts. I didn't cry. Not yet. The tears sat somewhere behind my ribs, waiting for permission. Linda read the note over my shoulder and gasped, "C? Who the hell is C?" "Chloe," I whispered. I didn't know it yet, but the name left my mouth like a splinter I'd finally pulled out. Linda clenched her fists. "Grace, we're getting you a lawyer, and possibly a baseball bat, depending on how the day unfolds." I burst out laughing. Too loud, too hysterical. But it felt good. Necessary. Like letting steam escape a pressure cooker before the kitchen exploded. That afternoon, we sat with a lawyer recommended by Linda's niece. A sharp woman with sharper lipstick, the kind that said she billed by the minute and didn't tolerate emotional detours. When she finished reviewing the documents, she looked at me calmly and said, "You're being defrauded, and I don't say that lightly." Fraud. A word that felt too big for my little kitchen table, too heavy for my 62-year-old heart. But also clarifying. "Do you want to fight back?" the lawyer asked. I looked at the papers, the lipstick-stained photo, the receipt, the account transfers. Then I thought about the woman I was 5 years ago, the widow who believed love had returned. And I thought about the woman I was becoming. "Yes," I said, "but I want to do it with dignity." The lawyer smiled. "Dignity is fine. We'll let karma handle the messy part." And for the first time in months, I felt something lift in my chest, like the first inhale after a long, underwater silence. I didn't grow up imagining I'd need a lawyer at 62. But there I was on Park Avenue, sitting across from a woman whose lipstick color alone could have intimidated a Supreme Court judge. Amanda, my newly retained attorney, clicked her Mont Blanc pen, looked over my documents, and said, "Grace, this is going to get worse before it gets better. But you're doing the right thing." I nodded, though my stomach felt like it had been put into the spin cycle of a cheap washing machine. Linda sat beside me, arms crossed, glaring at every financial statement like each line item personally owed her money. "I knew it," she murmured. "Younger men are like limited edition handbags, look pretty at first glance, then fall apart when you actually use them." I elbowed her. "Please behave." "I am behaving," she whispered. "This is me behaved." Amanda pushed her glasses up her nose. Grace, we need to gather everything. Emails, receipts, screenshots. Anything that shows financial mismanagement or an affair. Judges don't like emotional arguments. They like documents. I straightened my spine. I can do documents. I've been organizing my spice drawer alphabetically for years. Linda raised an eyebrow. Honey, you don't alphabetize. You put cinnamon next to chili flakes because you think they're friends. I kicked her gently under the table. Amanda hid a smile. The plan was straightforward in theory. I would act normal around Ryan. No confrontation, no demands, just quiet, surgical collection of proof while Amanda froze the accounts I legally owned. Meanwhile, her team would discreetly investigate the entity Ryan had created, the deposits, the withdrawals, and, if needed, his charming extracurricular activities. When the meeting ended, Amanda handed me a folder. Inside are step-by-step instructions. Also, a burner phone. I blinked. A what? Burner phone, she repeated. Just in case Ryan checks your messages or your cloud. It's very common in cases involving financial concealment. Linda grabbed it first. Cute. It looks like something my nephew used in middle school to text girls he wasn't supposed to. Give me that, I hissed, snatching it back. I am not coordinating an undercover operation with a phone that has a battery life of 9 minutes. Amanda sighed. It works. That's what matters. When we finally left the office, Linda and I walked down Park Avenue toward her car. She bought us both hot chocolates from a corner cart, then asked, So what's the next step, Miss Spy Thriller? Go home, I said. Act like nothing's wrong, and gather every document without looking suspicious. Linda stared at me. You? Unsuspicious? Grace, you nearly fainted last week when you saw a spider the size of a lentil. You are the opposite of sneaky. I can try. She looped her arm through mine. You better, because men like Ryan get lazy when they think you're still worshipping them. That's when they slip. Funny enough, that's exactly what happened. That evening, Ryan came home early, carrying a fancy paper bag from a bakery in Soho. Thought you could use something sweet, he said, kissing my cheek. I looked inside the bag. A single chocolate tart, 1 fork. He didn't even think to order 2. Maybe that hurt more than the lipstick. I sat on the sofa while he rambled about client volatility and market shifts, which I now translated fluently as lies with garnish. But the universe must have been in a generous mood that night, because when he bent down to tie his shoe, a folded piece of paper fell out of his jacket pocket. He didn't notice. I did. I pretended to drop my phone, bent down, and accidentally on purpose nudged the paper closer with my foot. When he went to shower, I opened it. A hotel confirmation, tomorrow night, the Midtown Plaza, 2 guests. Under special requests, someone had typed, please prepare bottle of rosé and rose petals. I stared at the paper, my jaw slack. Rose petals? At his age? When he got out of the shower, I couldn't help myself. Long day tomorrow? I asked softly. Oh, you know, he said, toweling his hair. Client meetings. I smiled sweetly. I hope they appreciate rose petals. He froze, just for half a second, but it was enough. I stood up, kissed his cheek, and whispered, Sleep well, Ryan. Because now I had everything Amanda needed. And Karma? She was coming down the hallway in high heels. The night I finally left wasn't loud or dramatic. No plates smashed, no screaming, no how could you thrown across the room. It was quiet. Still. Like the moment before a storm decides whether to break or let the world keep pretending. Ryan had no idea, of course. Men like him rarely do. The morning after I found the hotel confirmation, he moved around the apartment humming. A new habit he'd picked up ever since he started cheating. Apparently, infidelity gave him rhythm. He wore his navy suit, the one he saved for impressing important clients, and spent an absurd amount of time adjusting his Dior tie in the mirror. You look nice, I said as I buttered toast with the calm of a woman who had already canceled 3 joint accounts at dawn. He turned and smiled. Big day, I nodded. Oh yes, I murmured. Huge. He left at noon for his client meeting. I waited exactly 60 seconds before exhaling hard enough to blow my bangs upward. Then the doorbell rang. Linda burst in, holding a duffel bag the size of a German shepherd. Operation Freedom begins, she declared. I blinked. Why is the bag that big? It contains essentials, she said proudly. I opened it. Inside I found 2 bottles of water, a pack of almonds, a sweater I forgot I owned, and a frying pan. I stared at her. Why the frying pan? In case he comes home early, she whispered fiercely. Linda, I'm not hitting him with cookware. Well, not with that attitude. Before I could argue, the movers arrived, 3 young guys with sculpted arms and the emotional awareness of golden retrievers. One looked around and said, "So what are we moving? Everything?" "Just the things that are mine," I answered. He scratched his head. "Legally or emotionally?" Linda gasped. "Who raised you, a therapist?" We got to work quickly. Important documents, sentimental objects, my client's design files, the photo of my late husband, and, yes, the fancy Dutch oven I refused to leave behind because I had truly suffered for that purchase. As the movers wrapped my framed art pieces, one of them picked up a small abstract painting Ryan bought early in our marriage. Colors swirled outward like a storm in pastel. Linda crossed her arms. "Leave that." "Why?" I asked. "Because it looks like what depression feels like." She wasn't wrong. After 2 hours, the apartment looked unfamiliar, like a hotel room after checkout. My life condensed into boxes. My marriage condensed into evidence inside a manila folder. One of the movers carried a box labeled bedroom, private, and nearly dropped it. "Careful," I shouted. He steadied it. "What's in here?" "Bricks." "Books," I said. Linda added, "and regrets." The poor kid nearly ran out of the room. When everything was packed, I walked through the apartment one last time. The scarf with the lipstick stain was still draped over the dining chair where Ryan had left it. I considered taking it, then decided no, let the relics haunt him. I placed one envelope on the counter. Inside, a typed letter, nothing dramatic, just the truth in 12 lines, and a copy of the hotel confirmation I found in his pocket. Not because I needed revenge, because I wanted him to feel the cold clarity of being seen. Finally, I picked up my coat and purse. Linda stood at the door, her hand on her hip. "Ready, Grace?" I took a breath. I wasn't ready, but I was done. The hallway felt different, lighter, somehow. I pressed the elevator button, then whispered, "Goodbye." Not to Ryan, but to the version of myself who kept hoping he'd change. We loaded everything into Linda's car. She buckled herself in, glanced over, and said, "You know, you could have warned me. I would have brought tissues." "I don't need tissues," I replied. "I need direction." "To Brooklyn Heights?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "To Brooklyn Heights." As she pulled away from the curb, I watched Manhattan fade behind us, the skyline glowing like a distant promise of the life I was finally returning to. For the first time in years, I didn't feel old. I felt free. And freedom, as it turns out, fits perfectly into the trunk of a Honda. I didn't expect Ryan to find the empty apartment so quickly, but apparently cheaters develop a sixth sense. Just not the useful kind, like, "Don't ruin your marriage," but more like, "Something is wrong, and it might cost me money." I was barely an hour into unpacking at the Brooklyn Heights apartment when my phone buzzed nonstop. I didn't check it. Amanda had already warned me he'd panic, and panic always looks the same on younger men who were too confident for too long. Loud, confused, and slightly sweaty. Meanwhile, I was trying to assemble a cheap IKEA bookshelf with Linda. Correction, I was reading the instructions. Linda was threatening the furniture. "Why do these screws have Scandinavian attitudes?" she muttered. "They think they're better than us." "You're holding the manual upside down," I said. She flipped it. "Ah. That explains why step 3 looked like a yoga pose." We had almost gotten the top shelf in place when Linda's phone lit up. She looked at the screen and smirked. "It's happening." "What's happening?" She turned the phone so I could see. A stream of messages from Ryan, some angry, some desperate, some typed so fast I think autocorrect quit halfway. "Where are you? Why are your things gone? Why is there an envelope? Answer me, we need to talk. Grace, please. This is insane. Call me now." The desperation came fast. I'd expected anger first. The speed at which guilt arrived would have impressed a therapist. I sighed. "He found the letter." Linda nodded, then added, "And probably the hotel receipt you left next to it. Honestly, I'm shocked you didn't leave a trail of rose petals back to his conscience." Before I could reply, another message came through, this time to my phone, because apparently he wasn't satisfied texting one device. "Grace, please, just tell me where you are. We can fix this. Fix this." Those 2 words nearly made me choke on my tea. Linda snatched the phone out of my hand. "Ignore him. He's spiraling. And trust me, men don't spiral because they love you. They spiral because they lost control." Before she could finish lecturing, another message popped up. "Do we really need lawyers involved?" Linda raised an eyebrow. "Ah, there it is, the true love of his life, his assets." I laughed harder than I meant to, the kind of laugh that comes after months of swallowing disappointment like vitamins. Then Linda's phone rang. She checked the caller ID and burst into laughter. "Oh my God, it's him." I tilted my head. "Why is he calling you?" "Because he's desperate," she said, then answered it with the calmness of a woman who has waited decades for this moment. "Hello, Ryan. No, she isn't here. Yes, she is safe. No, I will not tell you where. Yes, karma is real. Goodbye now." And she hung up. I nearly fell off the couch from how satisfying that was. Linda shrugged. "What?" I was polite. After the bookshelf debacle, I stepped outside to take a breath. The view from the small balcony faced Manhattan, its skyline soft and distant, like it was giving me space to heal. I stood there sipping my cooling tea when my phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail. Against my better judgment, I listened. "Grace, I came home and everything was gone. This is crazy. We should talk. I don't know why you're doing this. Please, just come home so we can fix it." There was a long pause before he added in a smaller voice, "I didn't think you'd actually leave." I closed my eyes. Because that line, that one cut deeper than the lipstick stain, the bank statements, the hotel reservations. He really believed I wouldn't leave. He believed age made me desperate. He believed loneliness made me blind. He believed I wouldn't choose myself. Men like him always assume older women stay. But older women know how to survive storms that would drown younger ones. I deleted the voicemail. I went back inside and found Linda sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating crackers from a box like we were teenagers at a sleepover. When she saw my face, she softened. "You okay, honey?" I nodded. I think I'm finally okay." She handed me the cracker box. "Good, because tomorrow is the fun part." "What's tomorrow?" She grinned wickedly. "Amanda filed everything. Ryan's about to learn that the legal system has better aim than I do with a frying pan." I snorted. "Let's hope the judge doesn't need an IKEA manual." She laughed so loud the bookshelf shook. As I looked around the tiny living room, boxes everywhere, mismatched cushions, my life scattered like puzzle pieces, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Small, warm, uncomplicated hope. The kind that grows quietly once you finally stop watering the wrong things. The next morning, Brooklyn smelled like rain and possibility. I woke up earlier than I intended, mostly because the mattress in my new apartment was approximately the firmness of a medieval punishment device. I groaned, rolled over, and immediately fell onto the floor because I had misjudged where the edge of the bed was. "Perfect," I muttered. "I survived betrayal, but will die from gravity." Linda, who had spent the night on my sofa, popped her head in. Her hair stuck up like she'd been battling wind turbines. "You alive?" "Barely." "Good. You need to look presentable for Judgment Day." She wasn't wrong. Today, the legal system officially entered the chat. As I dressed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Silver hair swept back, a soft navy sweater, my oldest pair of jeans, the only ones that survived the great closet purge of last night. I looked steady. Older, yes, but steadier than I'd ever been with Ryan. Amanda sent a message confirming the morning meeting at her firm. "Bring everything," she wrote, "and wear something that makes you feel powerful." I stared at my closet. Nothing in there screamed power. But one cardigan did whisper, "I pay my taxes on time." Close enough. We took the subway because Linda insisted that humility would keep me grounded. But really, she just didn't want to pay for parking. The train lurched so hard between stations that I ended up half sitting on a stranger who pretended it was totally normal. When we reached the law office, Amanda led us to a mahogany conference room so polished that I could see my reflection contemplating life choices. Her team was already setting up files, charts, a laptop, and what looked suspiciously like a battle plan. Amanda gestured to the coffee pot. "Help yourself. We're going to need caffeine." Possibly divine intervention. I poured myself a cup and immediately spilled a drop on the table. Before I could clean it, Linda whispered, "Marking your territory. Smart." I elbowed her. Amanda began reviewing the case, line by line. She showed how Ryan had transferred funds, how he created the fake entity, how the assets had been rerouted. Every piece of paper was another sting, another confirmation that I hadn't imagined it, hadn't been paranoid, hadn't been dramatic. I just hadn't wanted the truth. Halfway through, Amanda's paralegal knocked on the door, holding a tablet. "There's something you should see," he said. He turned the screen toward me. It was a photo. A hotel lobby. very familiar marble floors. And Ryan, with his hand on the waist of a woman young enough to still believe rosé is a personality trait. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. Instead, I whispered, "Her lipstick shade is even louder in person." Linda slapped the table. "That's it. I'm buying you a baseball bat." Amanda lifted one eyebrow. "Absolutely not." Then the paralegal scrolled to the next photo. This time, Ryan was at the front desk, trying to argue with the hotel staff. Then another photo, Ryan pacing with his phone. Then, Ryan storming out the door. "Is this from today?" I asked. "Yes," the paralegal said. "He's been calling your lawyer all morning." Linda grinned. "Oh, he's panicking beautifully." Amanda steepled her fingers. "Grace, this is good for us. He's unraveling. Desperation makes people sloppy, and sloppy people make mistakes." She handed me a pen. "When you're ready, we'll file the restraining order and the fraud complaint." My hand hovered above the paper. I thought of my first husband, the gentleness of him. I thought of my marriage to Ryan, the sharpness of it. I thought of the lipstick stain, the hotel receipt, the voicemail where he said he didn't think I'd leave. Then I signed. A strange quiet followed. Not sadness, not triumph, just release. Linda squeezed my shoulder. "You did it, honey." I nodded. I think my heart finally unclenched. As we left the building, rain began to fall, soft and warm, like the city knew I needed a gentler day. We hurried into a cafe to escape the weather. I ordered a tea. Linda ordered a muffin the size of a toddler. While we waited, she nudged me. "You know, you're glowing." "I'm sweating," I corrected. "Same thing." We laughed, full, unguarded laughter that filled the tiny cafe. For the first time since everything began, I felt something settle inside me. Strength, stillness, a quiet certainty that whatever came next, I wasn't just surviving it, I was stepping into it. And somewhere across Manhattan, Ryan was probably realizing that the woman he underestimated had just become the storm he never saw coming. I didn't expect the universe to reward me so quickly for signing those papers, but the universe has a sense of humor, especially with women over 60 who have finally stopped tolerating nonsense. The morning after our meeting at Amanda's firm, I woke up in my Brooklyn apartment feeling lighter. Not entirely healed, but no longer bracing for impact. My first act of independence was making breakfast without worrying whether a younger husband would judge my choice of carbs. I toasted a bagel. I buttered it aggressively. I felt powerful. Linda arrived moments later, carrying a folder and a latte the size of my moral superiority. "Good news," she announced. "Amanda got the court date expedited. Also, I brought pastries because we're celebrating your freedom." "You brought pastries yesterday too," I pointed out. "Freedom is a multi-day event." We sat at the tiny dining table while she opened the folder. "Today we're doing preparation. Think of it as rehearsal for the big show, only without choreography or jazz hands." I sipped my tea. I never saw myself as someone who'd be involved in a courtroom. Linda shrugged. "You also never saw yourself dating a man who moisturizes more than you." Fair point. We were halfway through reviewing documents when my doorbell chimed. Once, then again, twice fast. "That's either the UPS man or Jesus," Linda whispered, grabbing a butter knife as if it were a weapon. I peeked through the peephole. Not UPS. Definitely not Jesus. Ryan. He stood in the hallway looking frantic, hair tousled, suit wrinkled, holding the scarf with the lipstick stain in his hand like it was Exhibit A in his own emotional trial. "He tracked you?" Linda hissed. "No," I said. "He guessed." "You underestimate cheater radar," she muttered. My heart thudded. I wasn't afraid, just unprepared to see the face of someone who once brought me orchids for no reason, and later brought me betrayal for no reason at all. Before knocking again, he straightened his jacket, took a deep breath, and rehearsed something silently. Probably an apology he hoped would sound sincere enough to buy him time. Linda whispered behind me. "You want me to handle it? I can cry on command." "No," I said, stepping back. "I've got this." I opened the door no more than 3 inches. His eyes widened with relief. "Grace, thank God. Can we talk? Just 5 minutes, please." I kept my voice steady. "No. Anything you need to say can go through Amanda." He blinked. You hired a lawyer?" Linda yelled from inside. "A team, actually." Ryan flinched visibly. "Grace," he tried again, lowering his voice to the tone he used during our first year of marriage, the one that once made me believe in second chances. "I made mistakes, big ones, but we can fix this. Please, I can't sleep, I can't think. I didn't think you would actually leave. That line again, the one that proved he'd never truly seen me. I exhaled slowly. Ryan, I didn't leave because of the lipstick. He blinked. You didn't? No, I left because I lost myself, piece by piece, and you didn't notice. He opened his mouth, but I lifted a hand to stop him. And frankly, I added, I refuse to argue with someone who thinks rose petals are appropriate outside of Valentine's Day. Linda snorted loudly behind me. I elbowed her without breaking eye contact. Ryan's expression crumpled in confusion. Grace, please, just hear me out. I can't, I said. There's nothing left to hear. He swallowed hard. Are you seeing someone? The insecurity shot out of him like a broken spring. Linda marched to the door, popped her head into the frame, and deadpanned, yes, she's seeing Peace now. And Peace is younger, richer, and has better emotional hygiene. I nearly choked on my own breath, trying not to laugh. Ryan looked between us helplessly. I don't understand any of this. You don't need to, I said gently. You only need to sign what my lawyer sends you. His shoulders sagged, his confidence leaking out like air from a punctured tire. He finally whispered, So, this is really it? Yes. He held up the scarf, the one with the lipstick stain, and said quietly, I kept this because I wanted to explain, but now I don't even know how. I nodded. You don't have to explain. I already did the math, Ryan, and the sum of everything added up to me choosing myself. He left slowly, footsteps echoing down the hall like a man walking through the ruins of a life he assumed was permanent. When the elevator doors closed behind him, Linda shut the apartment door and leaned against it dramatically. Well, she said, he took that better than I expected. I brought tissues in case he cried, and pepper spray in case you did. I laughed so hard my tea nearly exited through my nose. Linda patted my back. Congratulations, honey. You've officially unlocked the divorce boss level. As I sat down again, heart steady and breath free, a simple realization washed over me. I no longer felt abandoned. I felt unburdened. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt hopeful about whatever came after. 3 months later, I almost didn't recognize my own life. The court hearings were exhausting, yes, but oddly liberating. Amanda moved through the courtroom like a woman who billed by the heartbeat, and Ryan's lawyer wilted every time she raised an eyebrow. The judge didn't smile once, except when Ryan tried to explain the mysterious financial transfers, and the judge replied, Sir, my cat could lie better than that. Even I almost laughed out loud. By the final hearing, Ryan looked like a man who'd aged a decade. Hair thinning, suit rumpled, confidence evaporated. Chloe, the lipstick culprit, never showed up. Apparently she left him once legal trouble appeared, proving what we all suspected. Loyalty wasn't included in her skincare routine. Amanda won nearly everything. My assets unfroze, my inheritance returned, and Ryan was left paying fines that made even Linda whistle. The judge concluded firmly, Mrs. Harding, you are entitled to full restitution, and if I may say, remarkable composure. I wanted to respond, Thank you, Your Honor. I practice on the subway, but I kept it dignified. When we stepped out of the courthouse, Linda grabbed my shoulders. Honey, you did it. You're free. And he's financially lactose intolerant now. He can't process a single thing. I burst into laughter so loud a lawyer nearby dropped his briefcase. But here's the strange thing. After everything was over, I didn't feel victorious. I felt open, like life had quietly placed a blank page in front of me. For the first time since my 20s, I wasn't someone's wife. I wasn't orbiting anyone's needs but my own. I was simply myself. And that was enough. To celebrate, Linda dragged me to a community gardening event in Brooklyn, a place where retired lawyers, poets, and people who owned too many basil plants gathered to make the world greener. I didn't want to go, but Linda insisted that fresh air is cheaper than therapy. She put me in charge of watering a row of tomato plants. I, naturally, tripped over the hose and sprayed half the group, including one very startled man holding a potted rosemary. Oh my God, I yelped. I didn't mean to baptize you. He wiped water from his glasses and laughed, a warm, unhurried laugh that filled the space around him. No harm done. I've been told my plants needed a dramatic moment. His name was Samuel, 70 years old, widower, former history professor. He spoke gently, listened deeply, and smiled like life was still good even after everything it had taken from him. We talked as we replanted herbs, He told me he liked early mornings, old books, and the smell of rain on brick sidewalks. I told him I liked bagels, quiet triumphs, and avoiding furniture that required instruction manuals. When a breeze picked up, he offered me his light jacket. It wasn't flirtatious, it wasn't calculated, it was simply kind. And kindness, I realized, was something I had forgotten to expect. As the sun dipped behind the buildings, the garden glowed a soft gold. Samuel walked me to the exit and said, "It was nice meeting you, Grace. I hope our paths cross again." I smiled. "I think they will." Linda waited until he was out of earshot before grabbing my arm. "Oh, my God, did you see the way he looked at you? That man wants to alphabetize spices with you for the rest of his life." "Linda," I groaned, though I couldn't stop smiling. "He does, and he's age-appropriate, and he has elbows. This is progress." I laughed until my ribs hurt. Later that night, I stood on my small balcony, looking toward the distant Manhattan skyline. The city felt different now. Not a place where I had lost something, but a place where I had reclaimed myself. I wasn't afraid of loneliness anymore. I wasn't mourning Ryan. I wasn't angry. I was beginning again. And as the breeze brushed my hair, carrying the scent of tomato leaves and rain, I whispered something I never thought I'd say at 62. "I'm happy. Right here. Right now." Because life doesn't end when someone breaks you. Sometimes it quietly begins again, with a garden hose, a gentle man with rosemary, and the courage to step into a future you finally deserve. I used to think healing was loud, big revelations, dramatic breakthroughs, tears that soaked the pillow. But it turned out healing arrived quietly, like soft footsteps on an old wooden floor. Some evenings now, I sit on my Brooklyn balcony with a cup of chamomile tea, listening to the sounds of the city drifting upward. The low hum of cars, the laughter of neighbors, the distant rhythm of someone playing jazz from an open window. The world feels gentler than it used to. Or maybe I am gentler with myself. I still have the manila folder, the one filled with documents that once broke my heart. It stays tucked in a drawer, not because I need the past, but because it reminds me of what I survived. Every woman over 60 carries her own folder, I think. Some visible, some emotional, some written in memories only she can read. Last week, Samuel invited me to a small local bookstore cafe. We sat among shelves that smelled like paper and time, talking about nothing urgent, weather, books. The odd way pigeons seem to understand public transportation better than most tourists. It wasn't a date, it was something softer. The beginning of a friendship that might grow or might stay simple. Either way, it felt good. And maybe that's the secret. Healing doesn't demand certainty. It just asks for honesty with yourself. I'm not chasing grand love stories anymore. I'm collecting moments, warm, steady, genuine. A garden blooming on a rooftop. A new recipe turning out edible. A man offering me his jacket because the wind changed. Life didn't give me what I wanted. It gave me what I needed. A chance to come home to myself. And for the first time in a very long time, I feel whole.